Hello and welcome to Varsity Blue. Alex Prasad, Scott Wagner, Peter Saul.
What's up?
Another disappointing week to be a Michigan football fan, guys. Michigan traveled up to Madison and gets shellacked 45-24. Of course, it was close through 2.5 quarters.
Oh, yeah.
As has been the case all season. But remember after Michigan lost narrowly to Iowa, all the guys on the team talked about, well, the goal is to win out and go 10-2 for Brandon Graham because he's a senior. The goal is to win out and go 6-6 for Brandon Graham because he's a senior. Ohio State, of course, this weekend.
Right.
But just general thoughts and emotions, Scott?
It's how does this happen? How does a 4-0 team suddenly become 5-7? How does a team that was ranked 20th?
5-6. They could still
5-6.
5-6. Yes.
They could go 5-7. They could also go 6-6. How does a team who starts the season 4-0 stare a 5-7 season in the face at the end of the year?
Right.
It's quite baffling.
That Illinois game just the lights went out.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, Scott summed it up perfectly. There's nothing to say. There's nothing to say. Why do we keep doing this show? I ask that every week.
And people watching it right now will click off or leave YouTube because you just said that.
I'm so sorry.
Planted the seed. Apology accepted.
We have good stuff this week.
We do.
Interesting.
We really do. We're not going to talk
analysis,
too much about awfulness, but we will view the horror part 1800 starting right now with our Wisconsin highlights. It was just not pretty. Again, hope through 2.5 quarters, but just there's the man himself, our savior, Rich Rodriguez. Camp Randall, always a tough place to play, so you got that going for you. But Scott Tolzien just looked like, I don't know, Peyton Manning in this game, and what great tackling by Michigan there at the end of that pass. 7-0 Wisconsin here in the early going. He found his tight end over and over and over again. But again, early in the game, the offense looked good too. There's tape finding Vince Smith, who had a very good game, certainly the best game of his Michigan career. He looks to be the favorite for the starting tailback job next year, but Tolzien just 4 touchdown passes in this game. There's another one, nice late hit, Stevie Brown. I get a little frustration out of you there. Then Tolzien again, finding, you think he's going to find someone, but Brandon Graham forces the fumble. Ryan Van Bergen, look at how good the defense is. Michigan with a 17-14 lead at that point in the second quarter, but third quarter, the quarter of death for Michigan football this season. Tolzien again passing touchdown, 28-17. Michigan though, little bubble there for Roy Roundtree, who's definitely busted out in the last couple games. 28-24. Things still looking okay for Michigan at this point, but then the tight end again uncovered, touchdown Wisconsin, and it just got worse at that point, 35-24, and John Clay took over from there on. He had well over 100 yards rushing. Michigan outgained a ridiculous number of total yards for Wisconsin, over 400 again. This is on record to be the worst Michigan defense in history since last year. And before that, since a really, really long time. But certainly a disappointing loss, guy. And you take a look at the final stats and, just ridiculous. Rich Rod has now lost to every Big Ten team except for Indiana and Minnesota. Luckily, we won't see Michigan lose to every Big Ten team, guaranteed, because they will not play Minnesota next year.
At least for the juniors out here.
Right, for the juniors, that's right. Well, all three of us are juniors. Of course, Michigan has needed one win to reach a bowl game for a very long time. And in case you forgot, they made 38 consecutive bowls before missing out last year, in case you had missed that little tidbit of Michigan football history and their overall stats. Take Forsake, not a bad game, guys. 20 for 26, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. No fumbles, but again, 469 total yards of offense for Wisconsin. Only 265 for Michigan. We'll start with you, Peter. Is there anything unique about this game and how Michigan imploded?
Well, we gave up less yards to Wisconsin than we did to Purdue or Illinois. Is that improvement? Are we moving up now?
Marginal improvement.
Marginal improvement. We'll take it. No, honestly, there's nothing to say about this game. It's just another implosion. It's what we've seen week after week after week in this team. It's the same story.
What's so amazing is that the team, it's like a reverse adjustment. Anything that worked in the first half, they go away from, and then just get torched in the second half.
Yeah, and this was a common theme with last year, I noticed as well, as Michigan proves that they can play with anyone, and early on in the year they proved they could play with anyone and then beat them, but in the second half of the year they'll toy for a while with the idea of being able to beat them. Then in the second half it seems like Michigan just implodes for whatever reason. It's open for debate, but the last 3 weeks anyways, just complete implosion in the second half. You just can't figure it out. It doesn't make sense because it's not a particularly bad team in the first half, but they're not the same team in the second half.
Well, it certainly seems as if Michigan is now every Michigan opponent in the past, where Michigan would toy with them for 2.5, 3 quarters, and all of a sudden, remember that they're Michigan, take care of them, and the final score never really illuminated how close the game actually was. And of course, just a minor shout out to Brandon Graham, who is just a complete monster.
Another monstrous game. Yeah.
Right, regardless of the fact that no one else in the defense is really someone that any offense is game planning around. Well, anyway, we're going to go to commercial break. We're going to wipe the slate clean. We're going to talk some X's and O's. And, well, I guess that's kind of depressing, too. But not as depressing as talking about the most recent loss, I suppose. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Varsity Blue. Alex Prasad, Scott Wagner, Peter Saul. And this segment on our rundown is titled "Why!" ! Question mark, exclamation point, question mark. And you'll see exactly why it is called that. But we're going to look at both offense and defense, guys. We're going to look at some keys that really illuminate, or some plays that really illuminate what the offense and defense has been trying to do, when it's worked, when it's not. And let's start, Scott. You are going to be our offensive guru. So put on your guru hat, and we're going to take a look at some offensive plays. And we're going to start with, what is the zone read, Scott? Explain to us.
The zone read, so if you look here, this is just a basic formation. Obviously, this is a very crude example of it. We only have two offensive guards here. But basically, you're seeing everyone's kind of shifting over. You see that arrow at the top. That means the play is running to the right. And we have these people shifting over. You look over here. You have the quarterback could go to the left if he wants, or he could hand off to the running back going to the right. You see the line is shifting over to the right in order to block. And the main thing here, and this is what we're going to see in this play, is that the defensive tackle, the defensive end, we're highlighting him right here. They're going to let this guy into the play. They're not going to block him at all. And what Tate Forcier looks at on this play is whether or not he can beat that defensive tackle, or defensive end rather, I'm sorry. If he thinks he can beat that defensive end, he's going to keep the ball and try to beat him. If he can't, that's when he's going to hand off to Carlos Brown. Now, the weird thing with this play is that this defensive end is following Carlos Brown, so Tate Forcier would normally be able to just keep the ball and he'd have room to run. But what's different about this play is the outside linebacker blitzes, so Tate would not have been able to get there. So he hands the ball off to Brown, and as you see, with the line shifting over, they're able to create a hole and pick up some decent yardage. Actually,
really poor blocking on the interior line there, but Steve Schilling got one good block, a small crease, and Carlos Brown was able to go through it.
Yeah, and we're looking at another play, again, sort of highlighting what can happen. They're gonna let, well, no, actually, I'm sorry, they're not gonna let this guy, and they're gonna block, because what happens, it looks as if it's a stretch play going to the outside, and they're blocking, and then a hole comes up the middle, and Carlos Brown is able to hit it. And when you're going to see, when we see the highlights again, watch the outside linebacker to the right here. Right, he's running way to the side because he thinks that's where it's going. And then when he's able to cut back up, the linebacker is out of the play and he has that hole. And that cutback is made possible because they block that the outside tackle here, which they normally would not do. And that creates that hole, which allows Carlos Brown to pick up the yardage. Again, not fantastic blocking, but it worked out well enough.